15-man rosters, a tougher defense, D1 exhibitions coming soon, in what seems like a culture reset. You're on the Hoops Cat Pod. Dan Hurley, never stop.
Let's get it, 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 let's get it. Yeah. UConn, baby. Home of the champions. Let's go.
Welcome into the Hoops Cat Pod. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, coming to you live from the Big East Energy Studios. Really excited about all the additions we've had with the Big East Energy Network, Big Energy Media as a whole. Really love, what we're trying to put together for Big East fans, in particular UConn fans on my show. Got some more announcements coming in the next few weeks. We're excited about that. Real quick, make sure you go get Never Stop Life, Leadership, and What It Takes to Be Great with Dan Hurley and Ian O'Connor. Almost done with the book. It's phenomenal. Go check it out. If you're a UConn fan, if you're a basketball fan, you got to get this book. I mean, he is the greatest coach of our generation, and his ways, how he became who he was, is really important to understand if you really want to have a conversation around who Dan Hurley is. But that's here nor there. We're going to talk about the media availability that he gave the beat writers and others, some stuff that I don't have the ability to do. But I'll put this out there. If you're a UConn fan or you have any type of journalism background and you want to be our beat reporter on Boots on the Ground, we have a women's side that we have Boots on the Ground and a photographer. And if you would like to be the men's version of that, please reach out to me. Email bigeastenergy@gmail.com. The other thing I'm going to mention too is if you go to our Apple, Spotify, whatever, make sure that you are giving us 5-star reviews. Funny reviews are going to be read on the air. You also get entered into a raffle for tickets for promotional items that we're going to do. We're also going to have some really fun potential donation opportunities for those who want to kind of donate to the Connecticut Boys and Girls Alliance here in the great state of Connecticut. That helps the Boys and Girls Clubs all around the state. So definitely be on the lookout for that. But let's get into Dan's comments and the takeaways from that right after this. Okay. Let's go over it. I'm going to say one thing right off the bat. I appreciate Dan talking about his lack of hair. Talked about balding. That's what I am too. Like, I'm balding. I'm not bald. My wife likes my hair the way it is, similar to what he said about maybe you should. I think someone asked you should grow a beard, and he said I want to, but my wife won't let me. It's the opposite for me. Sometimes I want to get rid of this, and my wife's like, "Don't you dare do it." So if you ever see me trim it to its a decent length, and it's not as thick, it's usually when my wife is either working or the kids are sleeping or something like that, where I have the ability to sneak it there and do that. I appreciate Dan talking through some of that stuff because I'm sure there's plenty of those of us out there that are follically challenged and cannot grow hair anymore, at least on the top of your head where it matters. So, 15-man roster. It's he talks about how that gives them a unique ability to practice for about 2 hours and 15 minutes at the pace that they want to. There's a toughness there, really high intensity, just like a better urgency when you have this many kids and you don't feel like you have to kick back the throttle button, right? Everything is balls to the wall, foot stays on gas, and I think that's a huge advantage, not just for other coaches in the country, but in particular for this Dan Hurley led squad, because he's notorious for, just reading his book, really kind of following some of the ethos and the principles that Bob Hurley Sr. put out at St. Anthony's, and that's just never going to stop. And so definitely did not mean to plug the book there, but that's why it's called Never Stop, because you don't just stop your principles. You don't stop what you do as that's made you great. And those two back-to-back titles, and arguably, I think he did a better. He may not agree with this, and I think some people are going to think I'm crazy, but arguably last year's coaching job, in particular the game against Florida, where they almost beat the defending national, or the now the defending national champions, to kind of get to the Sweet 16. That might have been one of the best coaching jobs I've ever seen. That Florida team was stacked. The UConn team had a short cupboard. You had, a gimpy Hassan Diarra playing out of his gourd. Alex Karaban, for whatever reason, was in a shooting slump for most of the year. Had a ton of open looks. Liam McNeely, if you get Liam McNeely from Creighton, they're in the Sweet 16, if not beyond. There's no doubt about it in my mind. But you got Liam post Creighton, and it was a little up and down. His consistency level had a hard time. And they got contributions from Aiden, who's now at UC Santa Barbara. They got great contributions from Tarris, who I'm excited about this year. I do think that his coaching ability, even though he is the most critical of himself, showed a lot in particular in that game, in a loss. And it's what makes me so excited about this year, to now that they got some of the horses that they feel like they feel better with at the guard position, more depth at the wing position, some really interesting leadership options with Malachi Smith, who's a grad transfer, Alec Melander, a grad transfer, guys who have played a ton of games, ton of college basketball games, not just, hey, this is the best, most talented guy we could find. It was, can he fit in our system? Is he a good player? Yes. Oh, also he's played like 100 basketball games in his college career. It's just hard to find all of those things, and they have that with two guys who may or may not play. I mean, I know Malachi is going to play a big role, and Dan talked about him in the press conference. I don't know enough about Alec Melander in his ability to get on the floor, but I can tell you one thing: they were not going into this year without quality point guard play, in particular, quality senior grad student point guard play. Then you have a junior or sophomore, I think he's sophomore, redshirt sophomore, Silas DeMary Jr. as the head of the snake on that. So recreating what's possible. He's mentioned the 2023 team a lot. I think that's a great comp because it was a strength in numbers type thing versus, God, we're just so talented with our first 6 or 7 that we beat everybody. I think that was like a team that was 10 or 11 deep. So look, I heard some questions from the media. Media does a great job of asking Dan questions. I do think that there needs to be a little more onus on when the questions are asked, understanding that the question is likely going to be, you kind of, when you ask a question, you sometimes know the answer already, and sometimes you just have to ask it. I think this question I heard, I have no idea who said it because you only see Dan. Very rare to kind of see like it looks like they're huddled around him, right? So it's kind of hard to know who asked the question, but it was something to the effect of, do you think you're going to get some better, rim protection this year? I think it was like, Eric is more of a perimeter player, but you have Tarris and you have the new international player Razan, and obviously Eric, right? So you have 6'11", 7'1", 7'2", mostly going to be on Tarris. And Dan answered it predictably that they have better on-ball defenders right now. At least what they're going to think is better on-ball defenders. He mentioned Malachi, mentioned Silas, how much bigger they are. I think it's like, to Dan's point, they led the country in blocks last year because there were so many straight line drives that they kind of had to, or they would have been a lot worse than they were. So if this team can actually defend the ball, which they feel like they can, Malachi, Silas, he even mentioned Braylon. Well, if Braylon Mullins is a lockdown defender, I mean, just sign him up for a lottery pick right now, because that dude is a problem on the offensive side. He can score at will. Is he going to do it immediately when he gets on campus? I don't know. He's a freshman. But all I know is if he's open and he shoots, it's not going to be a miss. I mean, he may miss some contested threes, but my dude is an absolute sniper. So, players that are kind of moving the needle, right? Mentioned Malachi. I think said they're going to be a fan favorite. I don't disagree. I think Malachi comes off as the type of guy who may not be the best player in your team, but everybody loves him. And, he puts it all out there. Went to a smaller school. He's probably excited about proving himself in a larger stage, playing at Dayton. And now coming over to UConn. He gave us work in the Maui. I can tell you that right now. I remember him very well. I hated him, but I love him now. I didn't hate him. It was too late in the evening, and I was too frustrated with the team to really care to hate anybody on that team. So good on Dayton for that win. He mentioned Solo, who was kind of an interesting case. I've never heard Dan talk about his recruiting of Solo, that he kind of thought that he was going to be more of an Andre Jackson type, but now he's more of an Andre Hawkins type. And for Davo, who always comments on how I mess up those names, that was for you. I got them correct this time. But the Ajax comparison, I've never heard him compared to that, but it makes sense. Like, an athletic freak. They didn't know what they were getting from him in terms of his ability to shoot the three the way he can. And now he's an elite scorer. He's an elite shooter. Dan says he has to level up his passing and finishing at the rim, his defense. He said they want him hanging on the rim a little more this year, and he absolutely can. The very first time I had Tobias Bass of The Athletic on talking about Solo and how he thinks he's a future pro, the first thing he mentioned is his length. A 6'10", 6'11" wingspan and a 6'4" frame. They call him Hulk for a reason. Like, he's actually kind of a monster. He's a physical dude, big, broad shoulders, ability to kind of get after it. So if he kind of makes that leap, we're talking All-American, we're talking Big East Player of the Year, first team Big East Player of the Year, that kind of thing. The sky's the limit for Solo. Also, the most elite name in college basketball, Solo Ball. I mean, come on. Do you know Ball? If you don't know Solo, probably not. Alex Karaban, clearly added 10 pounds of muscle, almost like a co-coach. Leadership with Solo and Tarris Reed. I've mentioned this before. I think if his production stays the same, I know that Dan talked about how this big three with Solo, Alex, and Tarris they need their production to be elite. I'm going to disagree with Dan on that, and not in a negative way. I think Alex is so much better suited as the type of player that he is. He's freaking phenomenal. Like, I have no ill will towards Alex Karaban. I think he's one of the best players to ever don a UConn jersey, production wise, leadership, just knowing what it's like to be a UConn Husky. But he's not the number one option, nor should he ever really be. He should be a number two at best. He should be a number three. I think if he's in that 2-3 range where Solo is 1, Silas is setting the table at 2, you sprinkle in some Braylon, you sprinkle in some Tarris, where Alex is also kind of 2A, 2B, 3B, 3B. Then this team is absolutely elite. But if Alex Karaban has to carry this team offensively, they're going to have problems, and I don't think that's ever going to be the case. So don't even worry about that. Tarris Reed looks the part right now. Doesn't look as big as he was last year. He looks more agile. He looks like he lost some weight. He looks like he is absolutely just in the best shape of his life. If he has that Adama Sanogo type year, I mean, most outstanding player in the Final Four. Just think about how good Adama Sanogo was. You had Donovan Clingan at 7'2", nipping at your heels, and a lot of people were at that time were like, they should play Donovan more. But Adama was so good offensively. You could get a bucket at any moment in the post, and he could shoot the three, that he pushed Donovan off of that starting role, not almost immediately, but pretty much the entire year. So, and it made Donovan a better player, made him a better player the following year. I am super excited about Tarris. I think he understands that he needed to be a little more aggressive than he was last year. And Dan said the words, the stars must do grimy stuff to raise the ceiling. And I don't disagree. When your best players are also your hardest workers, and they are it's so much easier to copy that. When you have the 7th or 8th guy on your bench who's also like a great example is the famous one that everyone knows, Notre Dame lore, Rudy, right? If you're a Rudy fan, you wanted the quarterback of the football team to play like Rudy. You wanted your offensive lineman to play like Rudy. You didn't want Rudy to play like Rudy, because now you have to get on your guys. Why can't you be more like Rudiger? Why can't you be more like, a walk-on? Because I'm super talented and I've never worked that hard. Dan doesn't accept that, nor do I. So if you're Solo, if you're Tarris, if you're Alex, if you're now Silas, if you're Braylon, those guys who are the 5 stars and the guys that you expect to be their best players also have to be the hardest workers. And I love that line from Dan. Exhibitions on purpose. Harder exhibition games is better than playing a Maui type tournament that you aren't ready for. And to Dan's point, all the travel, all that stuff, it's like, he said, I wouldn't be surprised if these exhibitions are a mess, but they want to do a stress test now, essentially, right? And the best thing about doing these exhibitions, and I think this is where people miss this point, is that there's so many games now. You still play 40 regular season games if you make it all the way to the tournament and to the title game. Is that you can still play around with lineup combinations. You don't want to lose the exhibition to like a Boston College or Michigan State, but if you did, it don't matter. It's a preseason game. It's kind of like the NFL. Like you're seeing what you have in the different combinations of teams. And you can really kind of throw a bunch of different, you can throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. Or if you have certain play sets, if you have certain, actions that you're running that you feel is better suited for specific lineups or teams, then you can run those plays, but they're kind of maybe not what you normally run, but those could be good callbacks during the year. So I think that's an interesting storyline where this process of playing a couple exhibition games is better for the team in the long haul to essentially, be better come March, April. Okay. And then again, it kind of veered towards the point guard. I already talked about it. Absolutely a complete overhaul at point guard. Bigger guards. It's what they love. It's, they had a fling with smaller guards, kind of, to use a relationship word, but now they're back to their MO, their type. They have a type. They have like big guards. They like guards that can get downhill and do that lob game, but also finish at the rim, have the ability to kick out, can process quickly. I think that was an issue last year. So maybe the processing speeds were the same, but the decision-making wasn't as good because if you're 6'2" versus 6'5", sometimes those passing lanes shrink a little faster. Sometimes they don't respect the fact that you can score on them, and they play even tighter and stronger, and you lose the ball. I had a lot of turnovers last year from that point guard position. I think that's going to improve immensely, and I think that's going to be a trickle-down effect. The program identity. He mentioned this, and I thought it was really interesting. He kind of stopped himself because it was asked about the international players. And he said, something to the effect of, he's like, I'll probably get in some trouble here, but he's like, maybe some American players price themselves out of having the spots that the international players end up taking. And I've said that for the last couple of years, like that. And Gino started doing that on the women's side. Like you bring in international players that are legit talents, and they're going to play their ass off for you because they've learned that through the years. They do not have a entitlement issue that some of the American kids have. And I don't understand what it's not news, and it's really not about anything from a identity thought process in terms of like your worldview. American kids at that level, especially at the AAU and the high level basketball level, are more entitled than international players. Simple as that. The same way a kid that plays in an academy sometimes is more entitled than if you play a kid that played at his local high school, like a Braylon or like a Donovan. Those guys easily could have played at one of these academies, and they chose to stay in their hometown and play at their high schools. Maybe there's something to that. There's levels to that, and it's just one of those things. And going back to Dan's book, he talked about how I forget the sequence, but something to the effect of, it wasn't taking a shot at Cooper Flag, but it was red meat for UConn fans essentially, that he had to reschedule it was a tournament to go and see I think it was to go see Billy Joel, and it wasn't when he was thinking about going to LA. It was the year before, and how him and Andrea had to reschedule that because this was the only time that Cooper could come to Connecticut for a visit. And he was just like, and we didn't even get the freaking kid. So I thought that was an interesting nugget. And I thought that was like a subtle dog whistle to UConn fans of like, F Duke, F Cooper. But anyway, back to the international aspect of this, like, I don't know if these guys are gonna step up, but like, you just think about Eric. Eric has international roots, a German kid, played in the States now at the Bullis School in Maryland. Just think about the players that they brought in. It's not just about international players; it's the identity of in the pipeline and the program identity that Dan and his staff have created. Last year's team kind of didn't fit that from a size perspective, from a player evaluation perspective. Dan and his staff themselves talked about roster construction misses last year. I think UConn's MO and program identity is all over the recruiting on this and all over the transfer portal guys on this. If they lose this year before the Final Four or in the tournament or whatever, or if they have a year that's less successful than what most people think, then maybe you start to question, the vision of the basketball operations. But even still, worst case scenario, UConn does not win a national championship this year, and they've won 2 of the last 4. You might want to temper those thoughts in your head. Those intrusive thoughts of, oh my God, they didn't win another national championship. What are we going to do? We have the best, players in the country. Well, if they don't win it all this year, maybe they don't, but it's going to be pretty damn close, is what I'm saying. And on the margins, the difference between a Final Four, a national championship, and the dominance that they've had over the last, couple years, they're razor thin. The difference between going to a Sweet 16 and losing to Florida in that second round was a couple of minutes in that game. Razor thin. It definitely wasn't a classic Dan Hurley team last year, but they almost did it. Last thing, the pursuit of exactly what I just talked about, getting back to a Final Four, competing for competing for everything. The Big East championships, they lost to St. John's last year, and Creighton, coming in third in the league. I do think that Dan and them are really looking for that kind of Belichickian revenge tour of what's the Jay-Z song, allow me to reintroduce myself. That's what I think this UConn season is going to be. And if I had copyrights to that song, I'd play it right now. But I just think Dan and his staff are absolutely just ready for a huge explosion of talent on this team. I like that. Look, I think that there's really no I don't think they're going to have a ton of moments this year. Like last year, this was the sound of like my heartbeat last year with most of these games. Game was like that. This year, I'm not as concerned. I don't think we're going to hear a lot of these this year, especially at home. I do hope that we see a lot of Dan laughing. No, thank you. I play those laughter sound bites so that I feel better about the show I'm doing, kind of similar to a comedian. I need the positive reinforcement. Yeah, so to close out the show, a couple minutes here, I really do feel like this is a Dan Hurley scorched earth type year, or he may not be saying this to officials, and I don't think that's going to stop as much. I think he's going to. I think you'll see less of these types of explosions, but I do think you're going to see a guy that is kind of like just best. I guess the best way to describe it is kind of like is comfortable being the villain.
Say my name.
If you know. I think that's kind of what you're going to have this year. And I think most people believe that we definitely got one with Braylon Mullins. And maybe with Eric Ryman.
We got one!
Potentially. But don't all lose your minds if we have a year that's unexpected. And I think most of the people that absolutely kind of go crazy about this stuff are like the guy from Wedding Crashers that still lives with his mom.
Ma, the meatloaf! Fuck!
Yeah, I mean, but I also do think that we need to be ready for whatever, right? And I'm excited about the season. We will definitely be at Big East Media Day. And I'm super excited about some announcements that we have coming down the pike in a couple weeks. So this has been another episode of the Hoops Cap Pod. I'm your host.
Shooting, Tex.
It was nice shooting. And we'll see you next time. I hope Luke Murray watches this so that he can hear this.
Oh, nice shooting, Tex.
Still got to have a conversation with him and ask him, just totally off the record, what's that like to just, your dad is loved by everybody. If you don't know who I'm talking about, Bill Murray. Anyway, great show today. Loved it. Loved talking to you guys and giving my thoughts on where this team is and where they're headed. We'll see you soon on the Hoops Cap.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Yeah. UConn, baby.